So in front of me I have customer's Evolution Pro-X CU, and then I have one of these older black box CUs that I've just acquired with purchasing more track. And then you have your standard digital CU. This is my test rig for hooking up axle boxes and giving them the full function before packaging them up. Obviously the difference between, your digital car, you can see the switch in the photo eye there. This is a digital car that I've ripped the chip out of, so this is now just a standard analog car. So the customer supplied me with one of his Pro-X cars. There's some interesting things about this. There's like a little dip switch system right in the middle there underneath this. There's some sort of moving magnet. This is kind of an interesting feature. I've never seen that before. And the way the Pro-X measures lap times, from what my understanding is, there's this little hole in the guide itself. I mean, that guide is, it's pushing 2 inches in length. And in the track, there's a little, it's hard to see, but there's a little notch there, and I'm pretty sure that that is actually looking for that little keyhole in the guide to measure time. So what we're trying to do here is to integrate the two dummy chips that he's provided from his cars into an axle box so that he can run both Evolution cars and an analog car of any sort, any brand. So this video is just going to be kind of a teardown of this to see how we can make this work for him. So like most CUs, when installing, flip the thing over. I'm going to take out all the screws here in the bottom. We'll start with that. So you'll notice on this unit there isn't one of those stickers with the warranty removal notice on it. So we're just going to lift this off and have a look at what we see here. So overall, just disconnect here. This thing's pretty basic. Get your power supply, positive, negative, and it's just paralleled to the track rails, similar to how these other two work. This one and this one are exactly the same. And then this thing here is just the audible speaker for the CU itself, so there's no changes made to that required. Yeah, so I think the next step will be just to desolder these wires. We're going to trim these back. We're going to keep a little bit of length so we know which one's positive and negative, and we're going to go from there. Okay, so while I'm waiting for my soldering iron to heat up, just give you guys a quick demo on how to pull these things out. Generally you just kind of push them one way. Sometimes they'll slide and make one side easier to come out, but these ones are pretty snug, so I'm just pulling straight up on them. If you stress the little bends in them enough, they will snap, so just try to be gentle with them. And looking at them, it looks like there's a hole. Let's get that focused. There's actually a hole in the center that these wires are pushed through. So what we'll do is we'll just put a bit of solder on the tip of the gun and remove them from there. So first things first, have a clean soldering tip, just put a little dab of solder on it. And what we're going to do is just isolate one of these clips and apply the heat with the wet part of the soldering iron, and that thing just fall right off. Piece of cake. little bit of heat. This one's just holding on a little bit. Same thing here. You can see that. Just clean the tip a bit. Fresh solder. Straighten it out and just clean it up. Falls right out. Perfect. Discard your jumpers, don't need them anymore. And from here we will just trim this a little bit, just so we know where they're supposed to go. Positive, negative, get rid of these as well. Don't need them. Now when you flip the thing over without that bottom cover plate on, you'll probably find on other models that the circuit board wants to fall out. There's really not much that holds this thing in when it's not bolted in place, so just be mindful that, especially with these newer style ones, all of those buttons, sliders and stuff, they like to scatter across the table if you flip it upside down. So just be mindful and make sure you keep this thing well aligned. All the LEDs are flush when you flip it over. It might walk, it might not. Anyways, we'll fix that. It comes time to putting it back together. So right now this video is less about the installation of this box and more along the lines of will it function with this Pro-X system. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the wires that would normally solder to this after it's installed, and I'm just testing the operation just by quickly hooking up all the leads. Something else. So everything else is ready to go. The track wiring is installed, it's just loosely fit, so I don't have to spend too much time soldering stuff in. And we connect the box, we'll leave it in digital mode, Pro-X digital mode, to be more specific. When we power on, okay, lights are on, and if we take one of the controllers that this gentleman was kind enough to provide me, looks to be, the same as your standard Carrera wired controller. So we'll plug into the first port. Still on touch. Moving on the edge, that's what's happening. So we got this Pro-X car. Now, I'm not familiar with exactly how to program these, but I suspect that this one's already programmed. Alright, so in playing with this, I learned something. And learning something is always a good thing. So, the car, going back to the dip switches that we were just reviewing. if you look at switches here, let's see if I can get this in view decently. Those 4 switches there. See if I can get the numbering lit up very well for you. Right there, 1 through 4. There we go, 1 through 4. So right now switches 1 and 2 are in the up position and 3 and 4 are in the down position. Now what I've learned is this Pro-X series of track can only run 4 cars. There are 4 ports in the front of the unit. Now in order to get the cars to work, you need to program, let's get that focused. Car 1 at the top here, all switches down. Car 2, you have to put the first dip switch up and the second switch down. The other 2 switches, 3 and 4, I'm not certain what those are for. Talking with the owner, he says it has something to do with lights. I haven't looked into any paperwork to determine what those functions are for, but this is strictly just for car programming. So moving on here, we got car 3, switch 1 down, switch 2 up, and then lastly car 4, which is switches 1 and 2 in the up position, which is what this car is currently programmed to. And he made a comment that it should have a number on the front, car number 4, in that black and white text. So that being said, oops, I'm dropping pieces of the car. If we put the car on track with the axle box in digital mode, that way the test platform here is running as it was from the factory. Power supply in. Try not to drop everything. Power on. Car 4 works with controller 4 plugged in. So currently the box is working with the CU in the digital setting. So now we're going to function it in the analog to prove that it works with an analog car using the 2 dummy chips that he provided. Okay, so at this point I've got 2 chips in the box here. Unfortunately, the one doesn't have lights on it, so I'm going to have to think of a more clever way to make the LED on the front of the axle box work. But we're just here to make sure that this whole system is going to actually do what it's intended to do. So we got it all soldered up. We'll get this powered up first. Unfortunately, I had to rob the chip out of the donor car, so I don't actually have a means of testing it in the digital mode, but we already tested it. So now we're just here to test it in analog. So at this point, I've got car 1, all dip switches down, and car 2, dip switch 1 up, as you can tell from here. That's what we needed for car 1, car 2. So we will power up, and car 1, we've got our analog car here. In the wrong lane. Still going backwards. Okay, car 2 is going the correct direction. Car 1 is going opposite direction. Need to get this other controller going. Keep swapping these back and forth. Let's try this again. There we go. Oddly enough, the polarity of these chips is reversed compared to the normal system, so I gotta power this down briefly and resolder the power leads. Okay. Alright, so still learning a couple things about this system. The chips are polarity sensitive, which makes sense. That was something that I hadn't thought of when I was trying to get this to work. I was trying to rotate the polarity so I can get the car to drive the other direction. But much like a Carrera digital car on the newer, the more modern CU, if you turn it backwards on the track, the car lights don't come on because the chip is polarity sensitive. So instead of swapping the power leads, I've swapped the motor outputs. So that being said, we have car 1 and car 2, and car 1 in one hand, car 2 in the other. There we go. Helps when the car is making contact. So there we go. 2 analog cars on a old school digital Evolution Pro-X power supply. Okay, so an update on this particular unit. The owner of this track is wanting to mount the axle box himself to a different part of the track. So I'm just boxing up everything as we see here. The one thing I've done is I've just removed the power taps from the bottom of his track, bagged them so that when he gets it he can begin the soldering process. So we've got everything that he supplied here. We've got the CU, power supply, the 2 controllers, got the donor car, the chip that I didn't use because it was not the same coating process, power taps, and then I've got a couple of little goodies that I've printed for him. And then I'm just putting the axle box in a special container here, and I'm going to ship it all back to him so he can finalize the work. Anyways, so this is hard proof that you can install an axle box on a digital system that is not of the newer style. This would be your standard, more modern day